They say it takes about 30 to 60 days to make or break a habit. I'm sure you've heard this before. But how has that actually worked for you? Have you been able to just push through a certain number of days and boom, you got a habit? There seems to be a missing piece. How do some people just go from, having terrible habits, maybe having a terrible diet, a terrible lifestyle, and suddenly unrecognizable in a year's time? But then you can't seem to get any habits made or break any bad habits. Well, this 30 to 60 days doesn't seem to be it. If you think about it, 30 to 60 days, of course, will be important. It's a time component, and you do need a time component to actually create a habit. Have to give yourself time, have to give your brain time to sort of rewire and strengthen that, like, the habit, or strengthen the circuit within your brain so that it actually creates a habit and you're able to do things effortlessly, which I think is what a habit is. To be able to do something effortlessly without thinking whether you feel like it or not, and that could be a bad thing or it could be a good thing. So the 30 to 60 days is a very important piece, but the thing is, it's not the entire thing. It is what you do in those 30 to 60 days is really what is either making or breaking your habit. So what else is there other than just the time component of sort of like going through like a month or 2 months, 3 months, and letting your mental circuits to build up over time? What else is there? The next thing I can think of is how many times you actually do whatever habit that you're trying to build. For example, if you're trying to build a habit of exercising, how often do you actually exercise? You're going to exercise once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, or every day. Frequency, I think, matters. So this is frequency. If you, for example, exercise every single day and then you do something little every single day, that of course gives your brain like more reps to be able to actually rewire. Because if you're only doing it once a week and then you do that for like 2 months, well then that's only 8 times you actually did it. But if you say you did it every day, well now you did it like 60 times, and that's a huge amount of time to actually rewire, or like actually active time doing the habit, which helps your brain rewire to actually create the habit, really solidify it. So there's the frequency piece. And the other part is within the consistency, even if you say you set to exercise once every single day, but then a lot of the times you either half-ass it or you don't even exercise. So like you miss like 50% of the days, or 50% of the days you're just half-ass it. You don't really work out. You just kind of do a little something just so you can say you ticked off the box. So the consistent piece is almost like a quality. Like, what is your actual success rate? If it was 100% success rate, you ticked off the day. Of course, you actually did the activity and you put in like 100% of the efforts. Like you're doing the push-ups and you're full on like completely burning out, 100% to failure, 100% effort, and you're able to do that for every single day that you set. So combining all these 3 things, you'd want to have a long period of time, or just a period of time to be able to build up the habit, and a frequency enough to put in enough reps to of course, to have enough active time doing it, and then the actual quality, and then the percentage of times you successfully do the task. And all those things point to being able to make, or of course like then break a old habit or a bad habit, because then if it's now a good habit, you're of course replacing something that you're doing before, and that's most likely going to be a bad habit. And say you need all these 3 points to be able to actually break a bad habit and replace it with a good one, or actually create a new good one. If only there was a way to actually hit on all these 3 points and make or break a habit. Well, I think there is. And it's something that I call the replacement method. And how you do it is very simple. It's super simple, and I like to keep it simple so you can actually implement it. And is you think about what you want to do. So you say you want to exercise, and you think about your current situation. So say your current situation is you don't exercise at all. You barely exercised in your entire life. Maybe you did like a couple push-ups in your life, but you've essentially done nothing. But you want to be able to exercise and build up your muscles. So you think about like, well, I've never exercised before, so it's going to be quite difficult for me. Well, whether you think it is or not, anybody can do like one exercise, but to be able to stay consistent with it is going to be quite difficult. So you really think about your situation, and you're like, okay, I'm basically starting from nothing here. So I can't go to like level 2000 and just work out like 5 hours a day and do like 10K run and like 100 squats and 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups. It's just not going to work. You're not going to be able to stick through it every single day. So what you do is you think about something that you know you can do. And of course it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. Like even if you know you can do it, it's probably still going to be a little bit difficult when you're actually doing it, since you've never really done this before and you're actually making some change here. And of course like your body's sort of resistant to change. And your mind's a little resistant to change. But you set something that you know you can do, and you think this up, you set it, and then you just go do it. So in this case, in this example that I'm giving, you could be like, and this example is true to myself, so I never used to exercise before, but now I do 3 days a week without fail. It doesn't matter how late it is. It could be 1 a.m. I could have worked 15 hours in that day. I don't care. I will do the 3 days a week because it's a habit that I've built. So how it looks like is, since you start from nothing, you do like, okay, I'm just gonna do 10 push-ups a day. That's it. Or no, wherever you are, whatever you think you can do, maybe you only do 1 push-up a day. And then after a while, you consistently, since you know you can do it, I mean, still uncomfortable, but you do that 1 push-up a day. And then you notice, oh, I'm actually able to do this 1 push-up every day, even if I don't feel like it, I don't think about it. I just kind of like, hit the time that I usually do the push-up, and I just do the push-up, and everything's good. That means you've actually started to create that habit. And even if it's not quite 30 to 60 days, you're consistent, you had a really good quality, you might have actually built that habit up in a shorter amount of time. So what then you can do is sort of repeat the process. So you think about it again, like, okay, now I'm in a situation where I can do 1 push-up a day, no problem. I don't even think about it. So then now you can set like, oh, maybe I'll do like 3 push-ups a day, and then I'll add in like some squats, like three squats or something, to hit my legs too. And then you do that for a while, and then once you get like super comfortable with that, you know it's a habit now, then you just increase it a little bit more, and then sooner or later you'll be able to do like the whole workout, or like a full-on workout in a certain set of days without even thinking about it, no matter how bad you feel. Almost like a good example is brushing your teeth. Even if you got like 2 hours of sleep, you're feeling like garbage, you're probably still gonna brush your teeth. It can eventually become a stronger habit as something like brushing your teeth, or eating breakfast, for example, or like getting your cup of coffee in the morning. Those are all sort of habits. And the reason why this works is because you're making these little changes and then slowly leveling up, and then like sort of like by the end of the year, you'll have this massive change, and then you'll actually be like unrecognizable by the end of the year. And the reason why you don't make the huge jump or do something super hard, like for example, a good example is like an alcoholic or a crackhead. They can go for like a month without alcohol, and then they just kind of go cold turkey. But then as soon as they see like a little sip of alcohol, little grain of crack, it's over. Or you're on NoFap, you're addicted, but then you see some ass on the internet, boom, it's over. That's why you need to be able to make these small changes and then be consistent with it, so you can really work up your brain, rather than you sort of like putting it in the closet and then waiting for it to. It's almost like a ticking time bomb, this bad habit in the background. So if you consistently build the good habit, you're replacing it. You're sort of like taking that part of your brain that's focused on that bad habit and slowly chipping away at it, building up this good habit instead. So then you don't get in a situation where you'd supposedly have this habit for like a certain set amount of time, but then you get this trigger, like that triggers the bad habit that you've sort of put in the closet, and then just comes back in full force. That's a situation that this method avoids, since you're actually replacing it, and you're really building a good foundation, because you're slowly, like high quality, building this habit up. But what could this actually look like for you? Let's say you have a whole bunch of bad habits. You're living like garbage. Like you eat pure junk food, you play video games for like 8 hours a day, and you like watch anime for the next 5 hours. You go to sleep at like 1 a.m. and you wake up at like 1 p.m. the next day, every single day. You feel like garbage. And you essentially only have bad habits, and you have absolutely no good habits. What could this look like for you? Well, once you're actually implementing this thing, this replacement method I mentioned, which is quite simple, you just think, you set, and then you do, and then you repeat that process once you're comfortable. In the thinking stage, you might think of 5 different things that you want to replace with something better, like maybe replace chips with beef jerky, or like replace watching anime for 5 hours and like maybe stretching for a couple of episodes within that time, or going from no exercise at all to doing like 1 push-up a day. So you can think of all these things that you might want to replace, or essentially, break and then have a good habit. And you may have a list. So let's say you have a list of 5, and then you should go start to do these things. In the first day, it's fine, you did all 5, but in the second day, you're only able to get yourself to do 1 or 2, and that's totally fine, because you have to realize that you went from 0 and now you're doing 1 or 2. So it's still an improvement, although you couldn't do all 5. And then what you want to do the next day is not add on to the next day. If you missed 3, you don't add those 3 into the next day, because that creates a situation where now you're sort of increasing what you need to do. You're going like if it's 100%, now you're doing 200%. So it creates a situation where consistency becomes even harder and harder. And as you miss what you've set, it becomes harder and harder. So you don't want to go back and pile on these things, make it cumulative. And even Andrew Huberman has said this before, that you don't want to do this when you're actually building a habit, because you simply want to build up the circuits in your mind for the good habit, not like you're sort of like punishing yourself or making it more difficult by adding on cumulative. It just doesn't really help at all. So you just keep that consistency and do as much as you can. And it could be that you're eventually only able to do 1 or 2 consistently, and you literally never able to do all 5 consistently. But after a certain number of days, and you become super comfortable with actually doing these 1 or 2, and these 1 or 2 have actually become a habit. But what's interesting now is what you can do, and since this is quite a flexible process, you can think back and you'd be like, is these 3 habits that I want to create, these other 3 that I'm never able to do consistently, is this something that I actually need to do? Or is this something that is actually doable for me? You can sort of reevaluate. You can either change to another habit that you want to build, because maybe these ones are not something that you actually want to do, or you thought that it's not actually that effective to do it, and there might be a better habit. Or you can make a slight tweak and you're like, oh, okay, maybe this is actually a little bit too big of a jump. You can downscale it a little bit, and that's still a little bit of improvement, and you can now work on those 3. And since you built the first 1 or 2 as like a solid habit, you can already do those effortlessly, because they're a habit, and just focus on these now 3. So it begins to get easier, and you start to see the results of the habits that you've built. So that's sort of like the reward. And then you're also, since you're able to stay consistent and then keep doing it, you're building up you're reinforcing the circuits within your mind. And then on top of the rewards, you become motivated to do it. You get like the sort of dopamine in your brain, so you get motivated to do it, and then also reinforces it, so you're able to do it without even thinking about it, whether you feel like it or not. And 9 times out of 10, you start to feel good doing these good habits. And after years and years of doing this, or even months and months of doing this, you'll be able to look back on yourself and it's like, hey, I was here, but now I'm like way over here, completely unrecognizable to what I was doing in the past. And now that you built these really strong habits, these really solid good habits, and you've replaced most of your bad ones, you'd be like, hey, that's pretty good. And then just keep on going.